I realize that it's been a very long time since I last did a World of Warcraft video. Most of my free time for the last year or so has been spent working on a platforming game engine and an editor that allows users to create their own levels and scenery. And yes, it is a pony game. I too have been bitten by the brony bug, but I think now is a good time to say that if I start making pony videos, they won't be in this channel. I fully respect the fact that those of you who subscribe to this channel did so for World of Warcraft videos. In any case, what's on my mind most about World of Warcraft isn't what's happening in Mists of Pandaria right now, but what'll happen in the next expansion pack. Of course, this expansion pack isn't done yet. There's more story to tell, and I do want to see how that story ends. In fact, Mists has perhaps more story in it than any expansion so far. Vanilla had very little story to it and certainly no overall story. It was actually pretty sandboxy in that regard. The Burning Crusade was similar and had multiple villains to consider who had little or nothing to do with each other. I mean, how relevant was Gruul's lair to Mount Hyjal? Wrath of the Lich King was different. That expansion had an overall story, and with some diversions, overall it was a push to stop Arthas. Cataclysm had a much more solid story about Deathwing, his minions, and the overall push to save the world from him. When I first heard about Mists of Pandaria, from what I'd read about it, it felt like it was going to be a return to classic sandbox-style approach, where each zone would have its own story separate from the other zones. It started out feeling that way, but as you got deeper into it, it turned out that all or almost all of the mayhem was pointing to the Shah, and the Shah in turn were pointing to the results of the old gods. And the old gods are those same villains that keep popping up in World of Warcraft. The very fact that the plot thickened as time went on and characters received development and screen time shows how much more story is important to the game and its developers now than it was in the classic. And I really want to see how this story ends. Will Garrosh be killed? Will he be imprisoned? I mean, that would be like a fate worse than death from his perspective. Will he banish himself to Outland? Will he find redemption? Will he be sucked into a portal to a nightmarish realm of the old gods, never to be seen again until another 2 expansions? I want to see how this ends and whether defeating the Shah will really defeat the old god Yesaraj. I definitely want to see how all this ends, but to be honest, my mind is dwelling on what comes after Mists. I mean, I gave a whole slew of reasons why I thought the next expansion would have Azshara as the main antagonist and Sea Witches as the next class. It would give us a ranged class, bring back a character we've heard of before and who has been established as being very powerful, and it would push forward the lore about the old gods. Those are all intelligent reasons, but in the end, the reasons for going to Pandaria and having monks as the new class outweighed the reasons to do an expansion about Azshara. Blizzard really does need to start creating new lore for World of Warcraft instead of building on the lore from Warcraft 1, 2, and 3, or else they'll run out of old lore to work off of. And while I still think that a good next class is the Sea Witch, since it's ranged and the last 2 classes they added were melee, I have a feeling that they're not going to add another class in the next expansion since they seem to be adding a class every 2 expansions. So partly for that reason and partly because I'm so excited about having a working platformer, I've pretty much left my Pearl simulator to languish, though I might bring it back if Blizzard drops hints that I should, like more stirrings about the Naga or about Ashura coming back. But as for what stirrings are actually afoot, they point to another Outland expansion. Warlock questlines are taking them to places in Outland that explore the consequences of what Illidan did and show how things are years afterwards. There are also some undead elves with new models who are worshipping demons in new areas. Personally, I like the idea of another Outland expansion, especially one that heralds the return of the Burning Legion. The Legion was the driving force behind Warcraft 3, and they haven't been getting much screen time in WoW lately, though every now and again there's a little reminder that they're there. In Wrath of the Lich King there was Varamothra's attempted coup in Undercity, and in Cataclysm there were some quests involving the Burning Legion in Hyjal. While banishing, not killing mind you, but banishing, Kil'jaeden was no small defeat at the end of the Burning Crusade, it's clear that the Burning Legion is not gone, and they should come back at some point, and now looks like a good point to bring them back. An Outland expansion has gameplay benefits too. Wrath of the Lich King was created when they had some sophisticated technological improvements, such as phasing in vehicles. Cataclysm allowed Blizzard to apply those lessons and technologies to the Eastern Kingdoms in Kalimdor and make the leveling experience from 1 to 60 much smoother. But Outland pretty much hasn't been touched since late 2008, meaning that the leveling experience from 60 to 70 could use some improvements. An expansion in Outland would give Blizzard the perfect opportunity to revamp the existing zones in Outland while also adding new ones. If they do decide to add another hero class to the game, it'll probably be Demon Hunters. A Demon Hunter would most likely be like a cross between a Warlock and a Rogue, and in concept that seems like it could be a pretty solid combination. And if Blizzard wanted, they could give Demon Hunters a ranged caster spec, or maybe even a ranged weapon spec. While I think Sea Witches would be more interesting, Demon Hunters would fit the lore better, and borrowing a two-pronged resource mechanic from the Diablo series with Hatred and Discipline would be something completely new to the game. And it's worth adding that if they added a fourth spec to all classes, much the same way they did for Druids, then some classes that were melee only before, like Warriors and Death Knights, might end up with ranged specs, and that would easily balance out having two hero classes that were both melee. But one of the things that has me very excited for another Outland expansion was the fact that I found Outland so visually stunning, because the whole place is so alien they can use strange colors, structures, and creatures. Just to give you guys a reminder of how it all looked, I'm going to give you guys a once-over of how the different expansions looked, so let me show you a sampling of what they've done so far in the last few expansions. Outland absolutely took my breath away when I first came to it in 2007 because of the floating rocks, the alien sky full of strange colors and huge planets, and the startling vistas and the very rocks under our feet that told stories of upheaval. There was nothing this spectacular in Vanilla WoW. I knew when I started planning this video that I wanted to get footage of all the different areas in World of Warcraft to compare them to Outland. And when I was planning it, I didn't expect to find anything that would be anywhere close to as breathtaking or as grand as Outland. Looking back, I think that expectation was a lasting effect of the shock of seeing Outland for the first time. Now that I've actually gotten footage of all 4 expansions of WoW, I can tell that Blizzard's art department has done what I thought was impossible and truly has gotten better over the years. So if they do make the next expansion in Outland, I cannot wait to see what they come up with. All this is speculation, and the last time I speculated on what the next expansion would be, I had to eat crow when it wasn't a Sea Witch expansion. But hey, I can dream, can't I?